The morning of my gallery opening, I woke up with paint under my fingernails and hope in my chest. 5 years of work. 5 years of pouring my soul into canvas and clay, into sculptures that captured light like trapped dreams. Today was supposed to be my moment. The day Elena Martinez stepped out from behind the easel and into the art world that had whispered her name in galleries from SoHo to Chelsea. I was adjusting the lighting on my centerpiece, a massive glass installation called Fractured Light, when my phone buzzed. It was Marcus, my boyfriend of 3 years, the man who had held me through panic attacks about my art, who had helped me write my artist statement, who had promised he'd be the first face I'd see when the doors opened. Elena. His voice came through the speaker, tight and strange. I can't make it tonight. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. Very funny. The doors open in 2 hours. I'm serious. I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend anymore. The phone slipped from my hands, clattering against the polished concrete floor. Around me, my art stood in perfect formation. Months of meticulous planning reduced to background noise as his words echoed in the empty space. What do you mean you can't pretend? I whispered, picking up the phone with shaking fingers. I've been seeing someone else, Elena. For 8 months now. Tonight. I'm supposed to be at her daughter's recital. We're a family. A family. The word hit me like a physical blow. While I'd been creating art about connection and light, he'd been building a life with someone else. While I'd been vulnerable and trusting, sharing every fear about tonight, every dream about our future together, he'd been counting down the days until he could escape. You couldn't have told me this yesterday? Last week? Any time before the most important night of my career. I didn't know how. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Around me, 37 pieces of my heart hung on white walls, each one a story, a piece of my soul I'd carved out and offered to the world. And now I had to do it alone. The gallery owner, David, appeared beside me, his face creased with concern. Everything all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to say that the person I'd planned to celebrate with tonight had just shattered my heart into pieces smaller than the glass shards I worked with. Instead, I straightened my shoulders and smoothed my black dress. I'm perfect, I lied. The opening was a success, at least on paper. Critics praised my use of light and shadow. Collectors inquired about prices. Red dots appeared next to my pieces like small victories. But I moved through the evening in a haze, accepting congratulations while feeling like I was watching someone else's life unfold. Late that night, after the last guest had gone and David had locked up, I sat alone in my studio apartment, staring at the wall where Marcus's things used to be. His coffee mug was gone from the sink. His books were missing from the shelf. He'd planned this, orchestrated it while I'd been focused on my art. That's when I noticed something else missing. My sketchbook. The leather-bound journal where I kept my most private drawings, my experimental work, the pieces too personal to share. Marcus had borrowed it 2 weeks ago, claiming he wanted to understand my process better. I called him. No answer. I called again. Elena, please don't make this harder. Where's my sketchbook? Silence. Then, I'll get it back to you. Where is it, Marcus? I showed some of the drawings to someone. They're interested in your work. My blood went cold. Those weren't just drawings. They were pieces of me, raw, unfiltered emotions sketched in charcoal and ink. Studies of my own body. Abstract representations of my deepest fears and desires. Work that was never meant to be seen. Who did you show them to? A gallery owner. Surgeon. She runs a space in Brooklyn and she wants to meet with you. Elena, this could be huge for your career. I wanted to scream. Even in his betrayal, he was trying to make himself the hero of my story, the man who opened doors for the poor struggling artist. But something else occurred to me, something that made my hands stop shaking. Give me her information. 2 days later, I walked into Sarah Chen's gallery in Red Hook, my heart pounding but my mind clear. The space was smaller than David's, more intimate, with exposed brick walls and industrial lighting that cast dramatic shadows. Sarah was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with silver streaks in her black hair and paint stains on her vintage blazer. She looked at me like she could see through skin and bone to the person underneath. Marcus showed me your private work, she said without preamble. It's extraordinary. Raw in a way your gallery pieces aren't. Why haven't you shown this side of your art? I could have been offended. Could have demanded my sketchbook back and left. Instead, I found myself telling her the truth. Guess it's mine. Those drawings. They're not meant for other people. They're how I process things. But they're the most honest work I've seen in years. There's pain in them, yes, but also incredible strength. You're not just making pretty things for people to hang on their walls. You're excavating something real. She led me through her current exhibition. Local artists, mostly unknown, whose work pulsed with life and authenticity. Nothing was polite or decorative. Everything had teeth. I want to offer you a solo show, Sarah said as we stood in front of a sculpture made from broken mirrors and telephone wire. 6 months from now. But I don't want your gallery pieces. I want the work you're afraid to show. The drawings from your sketchbook, yes, but also new pieces. Bigger. Braver. Those drawings are private. Were private. Now they're in the world. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I looked at my reflection fractured in the broken mirrors, split into a dozen different angles and possibilities. For 3 years I'd shown Marcus everything. My hopes, my fears, my work in progress. I'd trusted him with the most vulnerable parts of myself. And he'd used that trust as an exit strategy. But maybe he'd done me a favor. What would you want me to create? Sarah smiled, and it was sharp as broken glass. Show me what it looks like when someone tries to break you and you refuse to stay broken. I spent the next 6 months in a creative fury unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I worked 18-hour days fueled by coffee and something that felt like controlled rage. I created installations that viewers had to walk through, immersive experiences that forced people to confront their own reflections in unexpected ways. My centerpiece was a room-sized installation called Exit Strategy. Visitors entered through a narrow doorway into a space filled with suspended glass panels, each one etched with fragments of text messages, emails, promises that had been broken. The floor was covered in mirror shards that had been treated so they couldn't cut, beautiful but no longer dangerous. At the center stood a single easel with a canvas that appeared blank until viewers moved around it, when heat-sensitive paint revealed the words, "What rises from betrayal is not anger. It's art." I didn't tell Marcus about the show. I didn't tell anyone from my old life. I wanted this to be pure, untainted by the need for validation or revenge. This was for me. The opening night was different from my first show. Smaller crowd, but hungrier. People didn't just look at the art. They experienced it, moved through it, let it change them. I watched a woman cry in front of my piece about broken promises. I saw a man take photos of the text fragments with his phone, studying them like a roadmap. Near the end of the evening, I was talking to a collector about the mirror installation when I heard a familiar laugh from across the room. My stomach dropped. Marcus was there, standing near the entrance with a woman I'd never seen, blonde, polished, everything I wasn't. They were studying the price list, his finger pointing to different pieces. He saw me before I could retreat. Our eyes met across the room, and for a moment neither of us moved. Then he started walking toward me, leaving the woman by the door. "Elena," he said when he reached me, his voice carrying that careful tone he used when he thought he was in trouble. "This is incredible. I had no idea you were working on something like this. Why are you here, Marcus? I saw the review in the Times. They called you a vital new voice in contemporary art. I'm proud of you." Proud. As if he had any right to claim ownership of my success. "Did you bring her?" I nodded toward the blonde woman, who was now examining my sketchbook drawings with uncomfortable intensity. "Emma? We're engaged." The words should have hurt. 6 months ago they would have destroyed me. Instead I felt nothing but a quiet satisfaction. "Congratulations," I said and meant it. Marcus looked confused by my response. He'd expected tears, drama, the broken woman he'd left behind. Instead he found someone he didn't recognize. "Elena, I want you to know what I did. The way I ended things, it wasn't about you. You're incredibly talented and you deserve." "Marcus," I interrupted, my voice gentle but firm. "I need you to stop talking now." He blinked. In 3 years of dating I'd never cut him off, never refused to let him explain himself. "But I want to make sure you understand." "I understand perfectly. You were unhappy, and instead of dealing with that like an adult, you created an escape plan that involved destroying my trust and stealing my private work. You convinced yourself you were helping my career because it was easier than admitting you were just a coward." His face flushed red. "I didn't steal anything. I shared your work because I believed in it. You shared my work because you needed to feel important. Because Sarachin made you feel like you discovered something special, and that felt better than being the guy who abandoned his girlfriend on the biggest night of her life. The truth hung between us like a challenge. Around us, people moved through my installation, their conversations creating a low hum of appreciation and wonder. But you know what? I continued, my voice growing stronger. You were right about one thing. This show is bigger than anything I could have created if I'd stayed safe, stayed comfortable, stayed with you. So thank you for showing me what I was capable of when I stopped needing your approval. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time since I'd known him, he had nothing to say. I looked past him to Emma, who was still studying my work with obvious fascination. She was beautiful, but there was something guarded in her expression, something that reminded me of myself 6 months ago. Your fiancé is an art lover, I told Marcus, loud enough for her to hear. She might want to know that some of these pieces were created from my private sketches, work I never intended to share publicly. Work that was shown to the gallery owner without my permission. Emma's head turned sharply in our direction. The look she gave Marcus could have cut glass. You did what? She said, walking over to us with measured steps. Emma, it's not what it sounds like. You showed someone her private drawings without asking? I watched as understanding dawned in her eyes. She was smart, this woman. Smart enough to recognize a pattern when she saw one. I should go, I said, but Emma caught my arm. Wait, could I buy something? I want to support your work. I looked at Marcus, whose face had gone pale, then back at Emma. Everything's for sale except the centerpiece. She nodded toward a smaller piece near the window, one of my heat-sensitive paintings that revealed hidden text when people got close. That one. The one about secrets. Good choice, I said and meant it. As the evening wound down and the last guests filtered out, Sarah found me sitting on a bench outside the gallery, watching the harbor lights reflect on the water. How do you feel? She asked, settling beside me. Different, I said. Lighter, maybe. The Times Review is going to bring collectors. The installation is already sold to a museum in Chicago. You know what this means? I knew. It meant freedom. It meant I'd never again have to depend on someone else's approval to feel worthy. It meant my art had found its voice not in spite of the betrayal, but because of what I'd chosen to do with it. It means I don't need rescuing, I said. Sarah laughed. No, you don't. You just needed the right reason to stop hiding. 6 months later, I was installing a new piece in a museum in Los Angeles when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but when I answered, I heard Emma's voice. Elena? It's Emma. We met at your show. I remember. How are you? Free, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I wanted to thank you for what you said that night about the sketches. It made me start paying attention to other things. I'm glad. I bought another piece, actually, from your new show. The one about rebuilding. After we hung up, I stood in the museum gallery, surrounded by my work, and thought about the morning I'd woken up thinking my life was ending. I'd been wrong. It hadn't been ending. It had been molting, shedding a skin that no longer fit so something stronger could emerge. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. 3 museum acquisitions. 2 international shows. 1 marriage proposal from a collector in Tokyo. Kidding about the last one. Maybe. I laughed and put the phone away. Outside, the California sun was setting, casting everything in golden light. Tomorrow I'd fly back to New York to my studio to work I was excited to create. But tonight I stood in a room full of my own making, surrounded by art that told the story of a woman who'd been broken and chose to become unbreakable instead. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's becoming so completely yourself that the person who tried to diminish you becomes irrelevant to your story. Sometimes it's turning betrayal into beauty, pain into power, endings into beginnings. Sometimes it's remembering that glass doesn't break to be destroyed. It breaks to let the light in.